Hey guys, Halina here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Ms. Marvel Season 1, so stay tuned. Okay, so first I'm going to go into my non-spoiler thoughts, so that way if you haven't seen the show yet, you're maybe on the fence about it, you can hear what I thought without getting spoiled, and then I will dive into my spoiler thoughts. Let's get to it. So Ms. Marvel follows Kamala Khan, a Muslim American teenager who loves and idolizes Captain Marvel. But when she finds a bangle from her grandmother, she discovers that she also has powers. We get to sort of follow her on this journey to discover just what her powers are and where they came from, and also watch her try to balance life as a normal teenager. So, I think this show was a rather enjoyable show. There were a lot of great moments in it, but I think this show kind of suffered from trying to do too many things in such a short amount of time. Like, I think it definitely would have benefited from more than 6 episodes, maybe like 9 episodes like WandaVision had, or better yet, a second season. I think there were too many pieces going around, and in only 6 episodes, you kind of have to pick, one thing and roll with it. But they tried to have too many things going on. But I mean, it still doesn't take away from the enjoyment that I had watching the show. I think it could have been better if it had, 9 episodes or even more episodes. Or, a second season. I think that a lot of people will find things relatable in this show, regardless of, their age or their faith or their culture, their heritage, their gender identity. Like, really, it doesn't matter who you are, who you identify as. I think that there are a lot of moments where it will be, relatable. And I think that's what this show does really well, is having, all these things sort of be very specific to Pakistani Muslim American culture, but also dealing with sort of universal themes that everybody deals with at some point in their lives, especially when they are teenagers. So, Ms. Marvel is very similar to Moon Knight in many ways. It means that you don't necessarily have to have seen any of the MCU in order to follow this show. But I think unlike Moon Knight, there are mentions of different characters within the MCU. Some of them even appear on screen. But it's not, so reliant on you being familiar with these characters and these stories, in order to follow the show. Like, you can follow the show if you haven't seen any of the MCU, but you definitely kind of get the references everywhere type thing if you have. So, you don't necessarily have to have seen the MCU to follow the show, but, there are advantages to seeing the MCU. Now, like I said in the how watchable is it if you haven't seen the MCU card, you don't necessarily have to have seen anything, but I think if you wanted to watch movies that connect in some way to this show, there are a few that you could watch. First on the list, I guess, is Captain Marvel. Kamala has this obsession with Captain Marvel, so there's quite a few mentions of her. But, like I said, not lost if you haven't seen Captain Marvel. It's just to kind of, I guess, understand Kamala's obsession, watch Captain Marvel. I don't know. Another one that I would say watch is Spider-Man No Way Home. There is a character from No Way Home who does have, I don't necessarily want to say, a large role in this show, because they really don't have this large role in this show, but it is a much larger role than I think anybody would have expected. But, I mean, if you haven't seen No Way Home, it's fine. This character exists, and this character exists in a way that, it's almost like seeing this character for the first time. I would say watch Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. I mean, I guess that's the theme to all these shows. Kamala does kind of give a brief, lopsided account of what happened in, Avengers Endgame specifically, I guess, but also kind of tying back to Infinity War. But honestly, it's just a brief moment mention in, the beginning of the first episode. And nothing from that movie is mentioned really ever again in the show. So, you don't have to really see it. But if you wanted to, it's there. I would also say you could watch Thor and Thor the Dark World. I know, it seems odd, but Eric Selvig, who is a character in Thor and Thor the Dark World, is mentioned in this show. He's only mentioned, he doesn't show up on screen, I'll tell you that right now, but he is mentioned briefly. So if you want to know who he is, what he does, why he's relevant, check out the first first two Thor movies, I guess. Like I said, you don't have to, but that is an option. Another one I would say you can watch is Eternals. Kingo, who is a character from Eternals, is mentioned, just like Eric Selvig, only mentioned. So if you want to know who he is and why the ladies seem to have a crush on him and Kingo Sr., check out Eternals, I guess. And last one that you could technically watch if you wanted to is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I mean, the Ten Rings logo appears for a brief moment somewhere. So if you want to know about what that logo means, go check out Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The thing with these movies really is, there really is no reason to watch any of them, but those are the references, either directly or indirectly, to these movies. So if you don't want to feel like you're missing something, go watch them, I guess. I don't know. But now I'm going to be moving into my spoiler thoughts. So if you have not seen Miss Marvel, go watch it. Come back here. I will be spoiling some major things that happen in this show. Yeah. I really loved the characters and their dynamics with each other. Particularly, I enjoyed Kamala and her family. I think, her relationship with, her mom and her dad and her brother are definitely some of my favorite dynamics. But I also really enjoy her dynamics with Bruno and Nakia as well. I think that's what these Disney Plus Marvel shows really sort of need to lean into, is the characters and the character moments and the character dynamics, because, I mean, that's kind of where the solid gold is, at least for me. Another thing that I love is Scott Lang has a podcast. So it definitely kind of explains how Darcy knew what happened in Infinity War and everything like that with Wanda and Vision, despite not actually being there herself and not exactly being besties with any of the Avengers. Also, how on earth do we get this in the real world? I just love, like, Paul Rudd as Scott Lang having a podcast talking about the events in the MCU. How do we get this in real life? That's all I need to know. Another thing that I really loved was the music. So the music that was used in the show was great, but I also loved that, you know, during the Marvel, what do we call it? Do we call it the crawl? The flipping through the Marvel things, creating the Marvel Studios logo. There were a few episodes where that almost kind of had this, like, Pakistani, Bollywood almost. I don't know. I'm probably getting it all wrong, but, like, it helps build the show, the music, not just in the show, but during the Marvel logo thing. I don't know what we're calling it, honestly. Yeah, so I love the music in the show. I also love the dive into Pakistani and Muslim culture, particularly how it also coincides with the American culture. Like, it's very Pakistani Muslim American for a good chunk of the show. And then it does kind of go into the Pakistani Muslim culture in Pakistan itself. But, I mean, we got a Pakistani wedding, we got an Eid celebration, and I don't know, just for me as someone who has never experienced the culture firsthand, it was kind of a lot of fun to see. Honestly, it was a lot of fun. Another thing that I really loved was AvengerCon. It was just a crazy blast. I'm not entirely sure why it was taking place at night and only at night, because what I gathered from, you know, regular cons, especially, you know, I guess the big cons like San Diego Comic-Con, they're not exclusive to night. Like, they do happen at night a lot of times, but it's also sort of like it happens at night because it carries over from the morning and the afternoon. But I mean, what do I know? I have never been to a con ever. I want to, but I've never been. So maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, please let me know in the comments down below, but I'm a little concerned about why AvengerCon was specifically at night. But nonetheless, I loved AvengerCon. I want AvengerCon in real life. But yeah. I love that the heart of the story is family. And we really got to see a lot of that in several moments, but like probably my favorite like family moment was when we were in Karachi and we had like Maniba, Sana, and Kamala, you know, just talking with each other and, you know, coming to an understanding about why their lives are the way their lives actually are, and really kind of repairing the strained relationships. That was a fun moment for me. I love that. But like several great family moments throughout this show, and it'll either be relatable to some people or people will be envious of the fact that, you know, there's this family, and it's just, I don't know, it's such a great theme for the show, and I'm just happy that, the heart of the story really was the family. I also love that it was Kamala who ended up being revealed to have saved her grandmother during the partition. Look, I don't understand how the time-traveling, timey-wimey business makes any sense. I didn't understand it in Endgame. I don't understand time travel stuff in a lot of things, but, the fact that, this story existed where Kamala's grandmother, Sana, followed the stars to be reunited with her father, Hassan, and that it was like Kamala and her, powers splitting off and creating these stars. And it was just, I don't understand how that happened, but I just loved it because it was such a great moment. Another thing that I loved was the creative ways that they showed like text messages, because typically in movies and TV shows, whenever people are like texting each other, you kind of get like, the text messages showing up on the side of the screen, and it's like, okay, it's fine, but like this way, like they had it like written in like the crosswalks and, in like the store window signs and the kites in Karachi, like, we did get, little text bubbles for a little bit there, but I really particularly loved the creative ways that they showed the text messages. I know a lot of people found it cringy. I loved it because the regular text messages showing up on the side is just kind of boring. So, even though it took me a little while to figure out what they were actually doing, once I did, I loved it. Another thing I loved was, like, in the finale, like, towards the end of the finale, like, it wasn't the very end of the finale, but towards the end, like, there's basically all these TikToks, and they're talking about, Ms. Marvel, but, like, they're not actually giving her name type thing, because she's Nightlight, but, like, it's just, they're all talking, and then you get the kid that she dropped in episode 2, I believe it was, being like, well, I guess I was just a beta test because I don't understand why she, like, dropped me type thing. But it was a lot of fun, like, just seeing everybody just sort of on TikTok, I guess it was, just talking about this new superhero, and it was a lot of fun. Another thing that I loved was that her mom was the one who gave her costume, like, because the show really started off with Muniba not wanting Kamala to grow up. Like, it was like, you can't go to AvengerCon, you can't go to parties, you can't, do this, because then you'll just grow up too fast. And we kind of came on a progression story where by the end, her mom is ready to let her go slightly. I mean, she does ask Amir to watch over Kamala, but, like, she gives her the costume, and it's sort of like, I am letting you go be an adult type thing. And it was such a sweet moment, and I loved it. But speaking of her mom giving her costume, I love that it was her dad who gave her name. It was such a beautiful moment, and like I said, it inadvertently gave her name. And another thing that I loved did come sort of at the end. Actually, I think it was the end. Bruno said the M word. Sort of. So Bruno told Kamala that while he was analyzing her genes and everything, he noticed a mutation. Mutants? Is this how we're introducing mutants? Because, okay, I kind of love it. I know that there's a lot of people that are probably very, very angry that they're changing Kamala from an Inhuman to a mutant because she's an Inhuman in the comics, but I don't have that connection to Kamala like a lot of the fans of the comics do, so I don't mind the change up, and if this is how we're getting mutants into the MCU, not a bad way to go. And I think also, like, there could be a workaround, like, if there is, like, major fan outcry and everything like that, like, because they didn't actually say mutant, they just kind of said mutation. You know, they can sit there and write it that Kamala is an Inhuman and Bruno just didn't know what to call it. It was different. It was sort of a mutation. I don't know. I'm hoping that this is how we're getting mutants into the MCU, but also I kind of want the Inhumans to have a second chance a little bit too. So I'm of two minds with this. I don't know. After Multiverse of Madness, I think any route is on the table. But I don't know. I think them using mutation, and I think it was the 90s X-Men cartoon theme music sort of playing underneath. It's like, I think they're hinting that Kamala is going to be a mutant instead of an Inhuman. I don't know. I'm kind of okay with both, honestly. But yeah. I didn't like the fact that Nakia was so distant from the plot. Like, she did get more to do, I guess, as we progress further into the show, but in that first episode, like, we got to see Bruno and Kamala's friendship really shine, and, you know, we got to see Kamala's parents treating him as, like, their second son, but Nakia just isn't a part of it. Like, she's just sort of the friend from school. But, like, then we had her running for the mosque board member, and she goes to Kamala's dad to try to get him to vote for her, and, like, she tells him that she is like his other daughter, and, you know, it's like, well, I believe that there is that type of, you know, familial type relationship between Kamala's parents and Nakia. I wish that we had gotten to see it, because we were kind of told it, but we never really saw it, and I don't like that Nakia was so distant from the plot, especially in those, like, first episodes. Speaking of Nakia, though, I also didn't like that, you know, she learns Kamala has powers at the end of episode 3. Like, that's sort of the, like, tail end of episode 3. And then we just kind of skip over all that to go to Karachi, which I did enjoy that plot. Like, I really did. But it was just this thread that was just hanging there until, like, episode 6, where they finally bring it up again, but it's just such a quick moment because, you know, it's the finale and we need to get to our big fight sequence, and we're fighting for our lives in this moment. Like I said, I think the gold that is in these Disney Plus series is the character moments. And, you know, this moment in particular really bothered me because it could have been a moment where these two friends hash out how they really felt, and instead it was just okay, let's put our plan into motion. Yeah, I know you're probably mad at me. Like, yeah, I am mad at you. And it's like, it was sort of like the underlying thing throughout this scene, but the main part of the scene was we gotta fight for our lives over here, so that takes priority. And it's like, Nakia just keeps getting sort of shifted aside every single time, and it's like, why? Like, I don't get it. Also, another thing that bothered me about the finale in particular was, like, the show gave zero hints about Zoe knowing Kamala was the one who, saved her at AvengerCon. But, like, Zoe randomly just shows up, in the finale. They're at the school, and she's there because she's shooting her TikToks in the school theater because it has the best lighting. And I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But, like, zero reaction to Kamala being this hero. And it's like, oh, because the show's trying to tell me that she knew all along that it was Kamala, despite the fact that Kamala literally had, like, a whole, like, face helmet on. It's like, I'm sorry, no matter how much you try to tell me that she knew, she did not know. And it was just, it felt like it was something that they're like, look, we barely had Nakia have time to react to Kamala having powers. We definitely don't have time to delve into Zoe figuring it out because Zoe was barely a character in this show. So, she knew all along. Yay! What? It doesn't make sense. Another thing that I wasn't particularly fond of was the clandestines and the Department of Damage Control being the villains / antagonists. Like, they were kind of sharing the role a little bit, and it's like, because we didn't really dive into either one of them, neither one of them was particularly interesting. And it was like, okay, like, this is where I feel like 2 seasons of show would have been better, because if season 1, was Kamala discovering that she had powers and kind of learning how to control them and trying to keep her secret while living a normal life, and, the Department of Damage Control was after her because she was a threat, that could have worked for season 1, and then we could have gotten time to flesh out, the New Jersey plots of everything. And then in a season 2, once Kamala learns that it's, a part of her lineage, she goes back to Karachi to talk to, her grandmother and the Red Daggers, and she learns what her powers are and where they came from and why she has them and everything like that. And then the clandestines can learn that, Kamala has the bangle and they show up to cause trouble for her. And yeah, I think this way, both villains could have had, their time to shine and be fleshed out and be interesting. And we could have had the New Jersey plot and the Karachi plot have more time as well, because we didn't get much time in either one of them, and the villains didn't have any time to be fleshed out. So the villain angle really just didn't work for me because of the fact that, like, what are y'all even doing? Like, what are you? And we didn't get those answers, but I think also, like, the New Jersey stuff and the Karachi stuff could have been 2 separate seasons and then really get to, like, live in those stories and those moments. Another thing that I didn't like was that the show kind of rushed through a lot of things, or just didn't even show moments altogether in order to tell the story sort of as fast as possible, because they gotta build up to this moment in episode 6. And like, I already talked about how the Nakia thread hanging for 3 episodes drove me crazy, but another thing that drove me crazy was the fact that, like, how exactly did Kamala convince her mother to go to Karachi? Like, we see that Muniba and Sana have a strange relationship. Like, we find out that Sana didn't come to Muniba's wedding, or Amir's wedding for that matter, and, Muniba feels that Sana wasn't the mother that she needed her to be. So, like, Kamala hangs up the phone with her grandmother, goes downstairs, and is like, hey, Mom, so we gotta go to Karachi. And Mom just rolled with that. Like, I know I'm probably wanting too much from this show, but I feel like that moment would have been beneficial to have. You know? How exactly did we convince Maniba to go to Karachi? Like, how? And if anybody knows any behind the scenes secrets, let me know in the comments, because I need to know. I need to know. All right. So, I haven't talked about a finale's post-credit scene since, I think, WandaVision. And that was sort of because we knew what those post-credit scenes were leading into. None of the other post-credit scenes we really knew where things were going. But this one, we do. We know that Ms. Marvel is leading into The Marvels, aka the Captain Marvel sequel. So I figured, why not look at the only post-credit scene this show had? It didn't have any other post-credit scene. This was the only one. So basically, the finale, post-credit scene, had Kamala in her superhero costume, and her bangle randomly starts glowing, like, I think it was purple, but nonetheless, it was glowing. And then she disappears / crashes through her closet door. And then, like, we get Brie Larson standing up, and she's, like, looking at her hands confused, and she's looking around Kamala's bedroom and seeing all the posters of her, and it's like, oh no, what happened? I mean, look, it's a weird scene. I was expecting to see Brie Larson cameo in this show, probably in the finale post-credit scene, to help set up Kamala's role in the Marvels. This, however, is not what I expected. I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. Some people were saying that they think that Kamala became Carol Danvers, but I think it's more likely that they just sort of swapped places, because Carol was looking at the pictures and the posters of herself in Kamala's room, and if Kamala had become Carol, then they probably would have had her look in a mirror and then freak out, because it's like, why do I look like my idol right now? I don't get it. But honestly, we don't know much about the Marvels, so I'm not entirely sure how this leads into the Marvels. But I definitely think that, like, Carol's gonna have to try to figure out how to get back to wherever she was and rescue Kamala from whatever situation that she has just randomly found herself in. What's interesting, though, is the MCU wiki shows that Kamala's dad, mom, and brother will be in the Marvels, and I think we kind of, thought maybe that would happen because, Kamala is still a child. But I think that we're actually going to see them trying to help Carol get to Kamala wherever she is. And then a lot of the Marvels is probably going to be trying to figure out what the deal is with these, switcheroos. Like, I'm thinking maybe, like, Carol found, another one of the bangles or whatever, and when she picked it up or whatever, like, the powers between these two characters somehow went, like, fritzy, and it caused them to swap places. I don't know. I don't know much about what's going to happen in the Marvels, but yeah, this post-credit scene is presumably setting up the Marvels. I'm just not entirely sure how, but nonetheless, I mean, I guess it was a fun post-credit scene, though really kind of confusing, but yeah. Overall, I think that this show was really fun and really enjoyable. The character moments that we got were great, and I really wish that they had kind of leaned into that a little bit more than the fight sequences, because even though the fight sequences did look great, it was just sort of like we kind of lost the character moments. I also think that, they tried to do too many things in such a short time, and I think that, the 2 seasons would have been better. But I mean, overall, I think it's definitely one of the better Marvel Disney Plus series. It's not my favorite. I think WandaVision's still my favorite. I think Loki might have it beat out, but I think Ms. Marvel would probably be in third if I was ranking these behind WandaVision and Loki. But nonetheless, I'm really curious what you all thought of Ms. Marvel Season 1. Yeah, so let me know what you thought of Ms. Marvel Season 1. Let me know, how does it rank up against the other Marvel Disney Plus series. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you like this video, leave a like, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you can be notified when I upload my latest videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye, guys.